Welcome back to the Glow Up Girl podcast. I'm Kyra. All right, now I am so glad to welcome Courtney to the Glow Up Girl podcast. Welcome, Courtney.
Thanks so much. Excited to be here.
Yes. I know. I feel like we met a really long time ago, and we've been waiting for this moment to get here. For you to be on the show. So I'm really glad you're here today. All right, so let's go ahead and kick it off. Why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Oh my goodness. I'll try to keep that short. That open-ended for me.
Girl, it's your story. It's your story. You got the floor, my friend.
Well, personally, I always like to kind of say, especially since we do have a little bit of video, I love Dolly Parton and I love cats. I do believe the future is female. And I also love just all things, women in business and empowerment. And at the same time, I love fancy baking, and I have watched every episode and series of The Great British Bake Off twice. So, I have varied hobbies and passions. And that has definitely, I think, shaped my career a little bit, especially the last decade or so. So, I'm kind of like a lot of people out there to where, I went to school for one thing, didn't do that when I came out, kind of dabbled around in a few different corporate things before landing in fitness and personal training, actually quite some time ago. Worked in a gym for a couple of years, but then for about 8+ years now, I've had my own business. So that too has had its own evolution and has looked like, in the beginning, personal training and actually online coaching before that was actually a thing. I started doing online coaching and virtual stuff when softwares were in beta, and really not many people were doing it at all. So kind of what's happened in the last couple of years was nothing new to me. I didn't see any disruption in my business or anything like that. But over the years, really connecting with a lot of women, both in their homes and online, I've kind of evolved what I do to look a little bit more like, I call it self-discovery strategy. So it's kind of that assist and a container for people to explore self-discovery work. And ultimately, the expression of that tends to a lot of times be around confidence and, kind of finding out what that means for people and then facilitating it, finding the ways that they can be more confident in the places they want to in their lives. Mm-hmm. So I've kind of moved away from the more, fitness specific thing. And it looks a lot more like coaching and, like I said, self-discovery work, body image, things like that. Mm-hmm. And that's still all virtual at this point. So it's super fun.
Yeah. And I love just even hearing about your journey. I know there are more details involved and you gave us a snippet, but just the evolution of you and how, and where you started and where you are today. And the fact that you have, you've grown yourself, but you've also grown your business to fit the needs of women as you see them. Mm-hmm. And that's really important.
Yeah. So, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it really came from actually very early on when I was doing in-person sessions in women's homes, actually. So I was going into their houses anywhere from 1 to 3 times a week. And in the beginning of my career, especially with fitness, it was very regimented, here we are, and this is about the workout and progression and, be consistent and all of this stuff. But I was starting to see their whole environment, meeting their kiddos and their pets and their partners and seeing their, kind of their schedule and just what life looked like. And very quickly realized this piece is such a small piece of everything, of whole person well-being. Right. And so my conversation started to kind of shift. And, ultimately I kind of moved naturally into more of a coaching role that involves just asking questions, hey, what's really going on here? What's the real challenge here? How can we figure this out? And kind of then matching other resources that just sort of amplified people's results of how they were feeling better in general. Movement is one piece of it, but it's just such a small piece. So that really informed then how I started to create different programs and, online coaching and groups and workshops and things like that, that encompassed more than just specifically here's a plan and follow the plan.
Right. And so I know you do focus on, cultivating a positive body image. Mm-hmm. First of all, let's talk about why that's really important And also, how can we work towards it? I know it's like something easy to say, but it's something that's really hard to like pull off and live and breathe every day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's huge. So the reason why it's always been so important to me is because really, again, in my personal experience and in my experience with hundreds of clients over the years, really like the way that we feel in and about our bodies, it affects absolutely everything that we do, everywhere that we do it, with every person we do it with. You just can't separate these things, and our bodies don't exist in a vacuum. And whether that's, right or wrong or good or bad, or just something we have to live with, whatever it is, like there are still things that we can affect, and working with body image and understanding, first of all, what it is and how, like you said, we can kind of work toward cultivating a more positive relationship with our bodies. That's huge, because again, it affects everything else that we do and how we show up and our confidence everywhere else. So, interestingly too, the reason that I'm really passionate about it, it's kind of funny because there are so many, especially women identified folks out there who are like, they kind of understand and see a little bit about like body positivity and like kind of feeling good and all of that stuff. So like immediately when I say the word body image, people are like, oh, I don't have body image issues. And first of all, the research shows us like there are a lot of different studies out there in many different countries, like across the globe. And depending on which one you look at, it's something like 87 to 97% of women identified people do experience body image issues by definition. So whether you like understand what that is by the name, or by that word, it's still all kind of there. So I'm really passionate about kind of that education side of it. And then saying like, listen, this isn't a bad thing. It's just information, right? This is data that we have about ourselves. And now we can kind of sort of learn those tools and stuff. So my favorite place to start is just, again, kind of that awareness piece of like, hey, when you like get up and you look in the mirror and you're like, oh my God, I'm so fat. Guess what? That's body image related, right? Or if you like step on the scale and you let it affect your whole day and you're in a bad mood, that's body image related. So it's just awareness. And then it's kind of that next step. And my favorite place to start is not actually anything, like, oh, love your body all the time or any of that stuff. Like, that's a tough goal for a lot of us. We've had a lot of life experiences, right? But I love body neutrality as a concept, which basically is just working toward removing an opinion or a judgment about your body at all. And just kind of moving into this space. I like to think about it as shifting, like you don't have to jump to that big positive thing if that doesn't feel right, but you can just say, hey, this is my body today, and then go about your business. So that's something that I often start with people, especially if they're really kind of struggling with like, oh, but I have to lose weight. And I'm like, well, you don't. So let's start here. Let's just like live in our body in the present moment and we'll go from there. So that's like kind of my favorite place to start with people.
Yeah. And it's like you're meeting your body, like where you are today. Exactly. Which trust me, I know I look I walk by the mirror and go, oh God, like, this whole like being at home and, 'cause when we first started working at home, it was like a party because you're just eating everything in sight. And I mean, like I was working out, but I was also eating bad. So those two things could not work well together. And then, after a while, it's like, oh, I wonder where those extra 20 pounds came from. Whose weight is that? Who's carrying that? And so, but now, I mean, even a year later, and having like shifted my eating back to like regular life eating and still working out, there's still moments, because I'm still like holding on to like those last pounds that I can't. I mean, well, let's just say I'm not gonna say I can't lose them. I haven't tried hard enough to lose them. But when I'm in the mirror, I'm like, oh, like I did that yesterday. I walked by the mirror yesterday and went, oh man, like, girl, you got to do something right here about this role. But at the same time, I'm like, it's me today,
Yeah.
And I'm gonna try and love this role because this is the role you put on, girl.
Yeah. I think it's all about being kind to ourselves. I'm a huge advocate, and this is to kind of the next level thing that I introduce and practice with people is self-compassion. It's something that, again, especially women identified folks are really familiar with toward other people. We can be super, super kind and compassionate toward everybody else, but we're very, very hard and mean to ourselves.
Yes.
Right. So I often try to flip that and put that first. Like, how can you show compassion to yourself? Because you would never, ever, ever act this way toward anybody else. And there's really no reason to do that to yourself either, you know? So that's another practice that goes along with the body image work.
And that's so true. I wonder, like, we do. You're right. We do it all the time. We're like, oh yeah, well, you know, she's probably just going through something, or I know it's hard to do with A and B together. So yeah, but when it's us, it's like, well, you're like, oh, well, I don't know why you're lying down. Like for me, for a while, I would like chastise my own self about wanting to take a Saturday off. Yeah. And I would tell myself like, well, I mean, you've got an everyday job. And you've got to work on Glow Up Girl at some point. So sitting here just being lazy watching TV, that's not it. But then I realized that just, you know, that constant pushing myself to work every weekend, I was just burning myself out.
Yep.
And it's like the same thing, you know, with our bodies. It's just constantly like looking, because we always see something so much more negative than what other people see.
Yep.
And so it's always because it starts to affect like a lot, because I'm just speaking from a personal experience, but like I will do like whenever I gain weight, then immediately in my mind, it's like, well, no, I'm not attractive anymore. Like, you know, or not to the level of like where I was before. And then of course, like my husband's not going to see me, you know, and this like, and then meanwhile, he's like in the background going, well, you're crazy. Like, right. You know, like, you know, and he's like, what are you talking about? Like, come over here. And I'm like, no, don't touch me, because I got this role and I'm not okay with it. So.
Yeah. It's all very complicated, you know, it's tough. And I will totally validate that experience for you and just say like, I get it. And every woman listening probably relates as well. Like you are not the only one. Like you said, we all kind of have our version of that where we, you know, do that really like self-critical thing, even in the face of like the people we love the most, like supporting us and encouraging us and saying, hey, no, maybe that's not the truth, you know, and it just, it's tough.
And try, and it's like, no matter, you know, that's why I appreciate the tools that you have, because it is about training yourself. It's like you have to continuously speak positively and pour positivity into yourself to say, it's okay to say, oh yeah, I'd like to lose weight. It's definitely okay to like, I feel like it's okay for me to think, yeah, I need to lose weight. So yeah, I'm working out, you know, 2 times a day. I'm tailoring my eating habits so I can get, you know, the weight that I want off. But at the same time, it shouldn't negate the fact that, you know, my body is still beautiful to, you know, I should see it as a beautiful thing. And I should believe, you know, you should believe your significant other, you know, partner's spouse when they say like, what is the problem? Because I'm always telling my husband, I'm like, whatever, you're just saying that because you want to touch me. That's right, people. You get the real here.
We're probably getting laughs of people listening, though. They're probably going, okay, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah, because it is such a, but you have to, we joke, but it's definitely, you can't let it take up residence in your mind, because you have to be able to separate that and remember that, you know, I started to tell my body, well, thank you, body, because you're sustaining me. You're showing up for me, you know, every day, even if there are some flaws that, you know, I'd like to correct, you're still showing up for me.
Yeah.
So, oh, girl, that's always like it, but it's just always having to like keep the positive self-talk and building up your confidence of your body image, I would say. Yeah. So I know you have a great mantra of uncovering, unlearning, and unleashing to help cultivate a more positive body image. Can you speak to that? Where'd that come from?
Yeah. Yeah. So really it kind of came as like a way to name the process that I had created again over the years and kind of
Mhm.
replicated and refined with a lot of clients over the years, of really like, especially speaking to, a lot of the things you're saying too, there's so much that we are conditioned to believe about ourselves and our bodies and what our lives should look like over the course of, from when we're little girls through,
Mhm.
our adolescence and adulthood as well. And a lot of times by the time that, women are at an age where they're working with me, which, is definitely varied, but my sweet spot is kind of like mid 30s to mid 50s, right? So
Mhm.
like at that point, people are like, wait a second, what's really going on here? And what do I really want to be going on? Right. So that
Mhm.
kind of speaks to the first piece of like, wait, what are the stories that I've been, telling myself
Mhm.
for my whole life? Let's uncover that. Let's dig into like what conditioning have I received and internalized, about that I do have to have a thin body, that that's the only way to be, or that I have to climb the corporate ladder, or that I
Mhm.
have to be married with kids and own a house. What are
Mhm.
these stories? Let's uncover that. And then we start to, kind of unlearn what needs to be unlearned. Like, hey, maybe there's
Mhm.
another way here. What
Mhm.
is it that I really want for myself? So a lot of that stuff in those kind of two phases is very focused on identity work,
Mhm.
values work, again, kind of uncovering and like getting really explicit awareness of our conditioning. And, just kind of saying, hey, is this what I want for myself? And what do I want for myself? And then the next kind of piece is tying that together with, okay, then how does that kind of move forward into like, how do my values inform my priorities, right? Like
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
do a lot of stuff around like goal setting, particularly because I think that's too finite, too straight
Mhm.
line. And like
Mhm.
life is not a straight line, right? Like it's just one
Right.
big colorful jumble all the time. So I like to kind of even change that narrative a little bit and talk more about priorities and like, what is important, what's important right now? What are we thinking about for the future? And then, okay, yeah, how can we like unleash all this stuff that we have learned and unlearned about ourselves to, move that into today and tomorrow?
Mhm. Now, this process that you created, obviously, I mean, you probably have gone through this as your personal journey. And let me ask you a question. There was a time where you took a break from social media, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And what led to that? And if you've come back to it, have you come back to it full time? Are you? What does that look like now?
Mhm. Yeah. So I fully stepped off social media. It was actually like, so I feel like it had been leading up for years. And I had done that thing that a lot of people do where you sort of dabble with like, oh, 30 days off or a little bit of time
Mhm.
off. And then, oh, I'm going to set boundaries. And then, 2 weeks later, you find yourself completely immersed again, and
Mhm.
I had spent several years like kind of going back and forth with that. And then it was really like last year that I kind of was like, wow, this is really not it. Like I was like one of the original folks on the Facebook, way back when I
Mhm.
was in college, when it was very new. Like social media has been a part of my life for a very, very long time, for like, almost 20 years at this point. Like it's
Mhm.
a lot. And then too, it grew into then, as we all know, a very big piece of business to rely on and all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. But at the same time, like personally, I just was like, I don't think this is it. Like, I don't think this is how I want to live my life. It was always a lot of what happened for me and what like kind of triggered my decision was that I kept doing the thing where I was like doing things and, living my life and automatically like on the roll in my head was what the post was going to be, what the story was
Mm.
going to be, how it
Mhm.
was going to communicate into like a social media thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, whoa, I don't want to do that. I just want to like actually live the experience. I don't want to live it in a way that I'm going to communicate it to somebody else. That's wow. How did I get here?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And I also just very strongly I knew in my gut that the way that I built my business, social media was maybe a piece of it for some awareness, but it was never how I got clients. So
Mhm.
I kind of was like, this whole thing of like, you need to be on social media in order to have an online business. I knew that wasn't true. And, there, I always had, gotten business through word of mouth, my email. I have very good SEO on my website, LinkedIn, things like that were like less of the kind of play that social media game and worry about the algorithm and all this kind of stuff. So there were like multiple factors. But what I kind of did was like, I think I'm going to be done with this. And so I sort of did this like ramp up for like 6 weeks where I was like, listen, I'm going to shut down my social media accounts, everybody. So sign up for my email list, find me on LinkedIn, go to my website, send me your phone number. This is the way you're going to be able to find me, right? Like if you want to keep in touch, this is how we're going to do it. Cause I am literally deleting my accounts. And I did it the day after election day in 2020. And it was great. I was like, okay, I feel like I need to like, see what happens on this day. And then, okay, I shut it down and I did not deactivate things. I literally deleted my entire Facebook account with 18 years of data, all this stuff. And I kept a couple things passively open, but like created a dummy account to manage my business page, stuff like that. So like literally I don't have friends, any of that stuff. And ultimately spent a full 6 months completely off of any social media at all, which honestly can't recommend it enough. Like highly, highly recommended. It was fantastic. It was a huge, like talk about like uncovering and unlearning. What happened for me too was I was able to kind of disconnect from all the emotional stuff that I would get from social media. As we all know, like you get that dopamine hit and you get that validation and all of that kind of stuff. And I was definitely struggling with that for me personally. So I was just able to like kind of reset all of that. So as you mentioned, then basically the reason why I kind of came back around was I did want to experiment again with a new program that I had. So I created a course about confidence and ran it as a live cohort as well, a group cohort in September. So kind of leading up to that, I was like, let me dabble back in this and see what I can do with like how this is going to feel and like boundaries. Right. And it did completely change my mindset. So kind of to your question, I don't think about it. I don't worry about it. I don't think about like, oh God, I got to post a post every day. I kind of am like, oh, it's National Cat Day. I'm going to post a picture of my cat. Like, I don't like always think about it, like I said, through this lens of like, oh, I need to like get people engaged and like get them to buy something. Like, I'm kind of almost more using it personally, but like my hot tip is well, first of all, I definitely unfollowed a lot of accounts. I mostly just interact with Instagram. I should say that's pretty much it. I unfollowed quite a few accounts, but what I really did was I muted almost every single account. There are like 4 that I have open. So I basically don't have a feed. Like anytime that I go in there, I see like 4 posts and then it's like, you're all caught up. And I'm like, yes, that's amazing. Like, so I'm not spending time like just consuming and scrolling and all of that because everything's muted. So like hot tip, if you want to kind of stop doing that, but also sort of be able to have people message you or, whatever. And that has definitely helped. Like, so it's such a lower level and kind of feels like an option and not that thing that's like constantly in your brain all the time.
No, I think that is great. And I thank you for sharing that and that's a great tip to mute people. Because yes, there are some people, I mean, everybody, I think experiences it on Instagram. I'm mostly like, that's where I spend Instagram and TikTok. Because the videos on TikTok are just too funny. But you're right. You go there and of course, everybody's putting their best self out there on display or what they think is what other people want to see. And that's all you're seeing are all the wins and the good things. But what I appreciate are the people that talk about the things that didn't go so well. And, and I do appreciate, and it's not saying that, people can't win and they can't share that, because I certainly am all for celebrating success for people. But I think that you should have a mix of all that. You should be authentic about the good, the bad, and, and the in between. And, one of the things with like the Glow Up Girl account, one of my like business managers that I work with said to me, well, you need to start showing up more yourself on your videos. And she's like, it's not enough just to put out great content, but you need to start showing. It's like, oh God, like who's got time? I was like, who's got time for, and it wasn't really like who's got time, but it was just one of those things where you're like, well, I mean, do people really want to have me showing up all the time looking in their face? But I mean it was a step outside of something of my comfort zone. But what I tried to do in the lives, or obviously celebrating other women, helping other people share their stories. But then when I am doing things, it's like I'm trying to offer like tips or things that I've gone through and done that have failed. Like, I mean, I had this whole like sort of like little reel series on about stop, start, and reimagine. And then where I talk about like the things that went wrong in my business that I put a lot of effort into, and I had a lot of hope that they would go well, but they didn't. And I think that to me, seeing people on social media that are willing to like really give you that honest piece of truth versus the, well, yep, I'm over here and look at me winning, everything is so great. I think that can help people to really connect to you more and help people, because you don't want it to be a platform where people always leave feeling bad,
right?
Because somebody's thinner than them or somebody's prettier than them. And it's like, yeah, but that somebody's probably all got like a whole makeup artist to like help them look that way. So it's just like putting, reframing, when you visit, like you said, you have your boundaries in place. So when you go there, you're not affected in the same way that you were before. And to your point, like, I don't think about posting like personally, like, I mean, I like post, like I read a devotional every day and I post that because it's an easy share. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna share this with people, but like, I'm not, but like personally, like, oh, I'm putting up, I put up pictures on like National Dogs Day because, or my puppy's birthday, but like, you're not going to see a lot of me being like, oh yeah, look, I'm here. Cause it's just not that.
Yeah. I think some of that too is like the thing that, even though we like a lot of times intellectually know it, like it's still like, it's really easy to forget, like the people that we most often compare ourselves to on social media tend to be like really high level personal brands. And people forget that because they make it look like they're, just regular people. But like you said, they're not. Like, and two, I always encourage clients and friends and whoever I'm talking to, like, just think about how you want to live your life. Like, do you want to live the internet life? Because if you do, that's fantastic. But remember, that's what those people are doing. They are literally on 24/7. That's all they do is live through Instagram or TikTok or like whatever version, or YouTube or whatever it is. Like, that's what they do. Like, and that is an authentic experience for them. But like, if you were just like a regular person with, maybe a smaller business, or you're kind of doing it, whatever, but you have like real obligations, or, and I don't want to say real and discount, kind of the influencer or blogger experience or whatever, but just there are kind of different situations there. And like, that was also part of my process, was kind of like, I've been living the internet life for, 6-7 years. Like, do I want to do that anymore? Or do I just want to live my actual real life?
Exactly.
Because, and my husband was helpful in that, because he kind of was like, I'm getting kind of tired of this. Like, every single thing is like, oh, take a picture of me so you can put in it. He's like, do we really need to do this? Like, I mean, can't we just like hang out together? And, so it's a lot about, again, kind of going through that process of asking what really matters to you. Like, does it matter that people on the internet like your posts, or does it matter that like people in your real life that you care about and care about you are, happy and fulfilled, and we're all here together, like it's one of those things that, we need to kind of try to keep in perspective as often as we can.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely. No, thank you. Thank you so much for your transparency there. So as women, how can we show up more authentically and confidently? I know that's a loaded question.
Yeah, that's a big one. I really believe, again, that confidence comes from self-trust, and self-trust comes from self-discovery. So I really think that it's all about really getting to know yourself, who you really, really are, not as you kind of have mentioned a few times, like who we think people want or need us to be, really like being unafraid to say like, you know what, this is who I am. This is what I believe in. This is what I want. And kind of dabble. I always say like, you get to know yourself and then you practice being yourself, right? Like, even if that's the little small steps of like, I used to do this all the time and I always hated it. So I'm not going to do it anymore. And then it's like baby steps on baby deer legs, I'm just going to be myself, even if I, haven't exactly done that for a little while. But the more that you do that, then you do start to trust that, what's true for you, that who you are is perfectly okay and wonderful and amazing. And then you start to become more confident in that. So I think it's definitely a journey, but I definitely believe that starts internally. That starts with ourselves. I have a lot of folks who often come to me after they've done, so many programs, or they've read so many personal development books, or they've tried to do all these programs, or, whatever it is. And the kind of root of that is like, that's still sort of trying to live somebody else's version, right? So let's sort of set that aside for a little while and figure out really what it is for you, and yes, there is a partnership involved in that, but like my piece in that is, that's why I call it self-discovery strategy, right? Like I'm here to just kind of provide you the tools in the container for you to do it yourself. But that's tough if you don't have any kind of a framework, right? Like if you're kind of like, well, I don't know. It's helpful if you have somebody who's like, okay, well, let's start here. And then you can go forth and, journal and come back and get some feedback and all of that, and then sort of make a plan.
Right. Yep. I love that. So why don't you tell everyone listening or watching about some of your programs and how they can connect to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my favorite work is absolutely one-on-one coaching. So I do that in a 3-month partnership that takes place mostly virtually through a lot of like kind of self-guided journaling worksheets. But then what we do is share those, and I kind of will coach through and provide feedback and comments and questions in, your written document, which I have gotten tons of feedback over the years is actually a really great way to do it, because, being able to written process, we know is like a really good way to do things and kind of get down into it. But it also provides people with a little bit more time, rather than like, we're on a call all the time and I'm asking you a question and I'm staring you in the face and you're like, God, I don't know, like, whereas if I give you, a worksheet and say, hey, I want you to do this week, and you take, an hour or two in your morning routine or whatever. And then we come back and, do that. It's just kind of a little bit gentler way to process. And then we do calls to kind of say, hey, what's come up in the last month? And what do you want to talk about live? What can we kind of dig into together for an hour at a time? So that's a little bit about how that partnership goes. But I also have a couple of courses. One is, it's a longer course. It's very in depth. It's called Fitness Unraveled, which really focuses essentially on the body image side of things. And basically everything that we talked about that I've gone through with all my kind of fitness and body image coaching clients. So that's a self-paced course. Or I do that as well with people who like kind of want to do that as more of a coaching thing. All the same material happens as well. And that's a 4-month coaching partnership though. And then I have kind of on the opposite side of things for like a little less big of a chunk, like a smaller chunk. I have basically like a 4-week course that's called Foundations of Self-Discovery. And that's kind of exactly what it sounds like, right? It's kind of just the beginning pieces of starting to explore self-discovery for more confidence, and you defining what confidence looks like and you figuring out kind of what those next steps are. So that's a little bit less investment, a little bit less time investment, but still, it's kind of one of those things like with online courses where you get the material and you get to keep it forever. So you can kind of always come back to it or take as much time as you need. So those are some of the best places to start for me. And really, like, in light of the conversation with social media, I'm not there all that often. So like, you can find me there, but I may or may not be available. So the best place to really find me is directly on my website. And that's just CourtneyThomas.com. It's Courtney with a K. And you can like schedule a call with me there or directly email me, sign up for my email list. I'm very, very consistent with sending out weekly emails to my list. And those are often full of resources and insights. And, I've been doing that for a long time. And that's definitely a good place to kind of get to know me and my work. And, sometimes whether I'm doing new things or discounts or, stuff like that is definitely in that place.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was fantastic. So we're going to move into our last segment right now, which is 5 things with Courtney. So I get to ask you five questions so we can dig a little bit deeper and learn a little bit more about you, Courtney. So my first question is, how do you start the day?
Oh, I am probably like the worst example of this. I'm not like first of all, I'm not a morning person. So I'm not a morning routine person.
Mm-hmm.
I like get up and I like change into like sweatpants from my pajamas, as most of us do these days. Right. And I like make my shake. I drink like a smoothie for breakfast and like make my coffee, and I sit down and like the first thing I do is check my email and read the news. It's like the worst possible thing that we know we're supposed to do, but that's what makes me feel best. I've tried a lot of different things, but I love getting that out of the way, giving myself a little bit of time to wake up, and then I kind of dig into whatever my tasks are for the day.
Awesome. No. I mean, hey, whatever works for you, my friend.
Yep.
What's the one goal that you set for yourself this year?
I don't know that I did a good job of that in the beginning of the year, really. So if I had to say, kind of looking back, I would, I actually think that I had some maybe looser intentions around the Foundations of Self-Discovery course that I mentioned, about kind of developing that into something more streamlined and a little bit simpler, because I did see it kind of reflected back to me that people were a little bit like, I can't take on all this deep, like one-on-one coaching work for an extended period of time for 3 months. Like, I want to do this stuff, but I need it to be just a little bit less. So being able to put that into a container and, get that going. And like, I filled the group coaching, I had, people digging into that course. Like, so that was a goal that I had, that I made work here in the summer and fall.
So, how do you spend a day off? What do you like to do on your day off?
Oh, it's always something outside. I live in Denver, and my husband and I love the mountains. So it's heading up to the mountains for a hike for sure. Or in the winter, we snowshoe. So, it's kind of that 4 seasons thing, but it's definitely getting outside.
Awesome. Love that. What is a song that's on rotation in your playlist currently?
Oh my God, so many. I love music, and especially like when I'm working out, that Spotify, like it knows me well. I don't know that I could say like a specific song in my rotation, but I will name the artists, and they are always Dolly, Janet Jackson, and Harry Styles.
Nice. I love that. I love the variety. And lastly, well, I'm definitely interested in knowing how you end the day.
Typically I end the day with a workout, actually. So like, I kind of like wrap up the workday sort of the same. Like, I usually kind of check emails, make sure is there anything else I need to respond to today? I have a paper planner that I work with. So kind of check that task list and usually turn it over to the next page and set my top 3 for the next day. And then, kind of close that, shut everything down. And then I have a nice basement gym. So that's when I either go down to the basement gym and take a Peloton ride or do my workout or whatever. And that's kind of my transition time, is a workout in the afternoon, and then, eat dinner and time with my husband.
Awesome. I love it. Well, thank you, Courtney, so much for coming and stopping by today and just having this discussion with me. So needed always. And I love being able to talk honestly with someone, but also be encouraging to anyone out there listening who may be experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, absolutely. This was awesome. Thanks so much.
Awesome. Well, stay tuned, everyone. I'll be right back.